We're going to talk today about happiness at work, which is, I guess, the other side of not being happy at work. And as the previous speaker said, my name is Rosemarie Ryan. I am the Director of Organisational Development, which is all about learning, in Chanelle Pharma in Loughrea. And my own career really went on a journey of trying to find that role that I was extremely happy in. And I guess I have found that role. And it was a journey of figuring out what it was I wanted to do, what skills I was really good at, what skills I wasn't so good at but wanted to develop, but mostly the kind of culture that I wanted to work in. So when we talk about culture in an organisation, we are really talking about the atmosphere and the relationships and the friendships and the opportunity for growth in an organisation. And so at Chanelle, what is very important to us is that when you start out on the journey with us, the first thing that we do is we do what's called an induction day, and then that's followed by a really good onboarding experience. And part of that experience is us in learning and development, keeping a really close eye to make sure that your first 30, 60 and 90 days is a really good experience. So we do a lot of hand-holding. And what's very important, particularly for me and my department, is to understand how important it is to people to feel that they matter. Maybe some organisations say that and do their way of doing it, but the way we do it in Chanelle is we, as I said, keep a very close eye on how people are doing in their first 90 days. Just with regards to, oh yes, the slides, here we go. I have to put on my glasses. No. Anyway, I can do it without this, I don't need it. So what happens in induction, and this is really important, is that on the first day when anybody joins our company, the first thing that we do is all of the new joiners will all meet, and we go into the classroom, and the first thing that we will do is introduce ourselves, and everybody gets to know everybody. And in Chanelle, I would say 35% or more of the people who work in Chanelle are from countries outside of Ireland. And it's actually fantastic. And so that is why the overview here, where it says Chanelle is proud to be Ireland's largest indigenous pharmaceutical company. Now, the kind of product that we make is we make health products for both animals and for humans, which is fantastic. And where the previous speaker spoke about, making meaning and having a sense of service about what you do at work, we certainly have a sense of service because I love both animals and people. And we feel that at the end of the road, whether you're working in production or you're working in administration or you're working in my role, which is all about learning, that at the end of the day that you're doing something really significant. So there is a real sense of when you see those trucks leaving Chanelle and going out and delivering those products at the end, there is a fantastic sense of I'm part of something that's really good. So just wanted to show you here this slide, which is, it represents the soul and personality of our company. So you can see our values here are respect every person. And again, we bring that into our induction and our onboarding and right throughout your whole work journey with us in Chanelle. Our other value is high-performing people, but what we mean by this is to support people to become the best that they were meant to be when it comes to their career development. Exceptional communication. What we mean by exceptional communication is the ability to be able to build really good relationships, but also to speak the same language when it comes to helping people to understand each other, regardless of what line of work that they're in, and that everybody is on the same page. Financial discipline, to always remember that it isn't just because it's a really big company, it doesn't mean, that we would ever become careless about, stuff that we would buy or stuff that we would invest in, or to be careless about anything that was related to, the financial side of the business. And of course, being in pharma and a highly regulated industry, quality is our responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. And the other word that we would use is accountability. We use that word a lot, that we hold ourselves accountable to do the very best that we can for both the organisation and for ourselves and for our co-workers. And the customer always comes first. And in learning and development at Chanelle, my department, what we would always consider is that anybody who comes into our classroom, anybody who's working in Chanelle, they are our internal customer. And so it's our job to ensure that we give them a really good experience. And we really take that to heart. And I can honestly say that the team that I work with in HR and L&D, we often say we're the dream team because we all have exactly the same values. And we all really love the people who come into our classroom. And we love our new hires. And we love helping them to be the best that they can. So why is a great induction and onboarding experience critical to engagement? A part of my role in organisation development is also very much around employee engagement. And, when happy people come to work, they have a good day. And that has a really good impacting on the people around them. And it also has a really good impact on everybody that they deal with going forward. And you know yourself that if you've had a bad day at work, or, you'll get over a bad day or even a bad week. But if you are relentlessly unhappy, it really is going to have an impact on not only yourself, but on the people around you. And therefore, for us, it is really important that we check in on a regular basis how people are doing, how they're feeling. And we do that through regular learning and development sessions. And we also have a coaching session. I look after the coaching piece at work. So if there are people who are thinking that maybe they're not so happy in the role that they're doing, and they're finding that it's more than an off day, that it's actually becoming off months, we do a career development coaching, and I run that side of things also in the company. And it's really good because it gives people kind of a safe space to get a lot of stuff off their chest, and, not everybody loves what they do all of the time. But if it's becoming a thing that people feel, mostly what I would find is that sometimes people might say, I think I can do more, or I feel I'm, going a bit dead, like in my job, and I want more responsibility. Or there's a course that I'd like to do, or I'm doing too much of this thing and I'd really like to be doing more of this other thing. Well, then we genuinely listen. We can't say that we'll have something for everybody straight away, but we'll certainly, help that person get to where they want to be. So on our first day, as I said, we have our first day of induction where everybody meets each other. They have to, do the most important compliance learning and the mandatory learnings, and they get to meet all of the key stakeholders from the different departments. And then when that is over, they move into what we call their 30, 60, 90 experience. So how do you navigate your first 90 days? Well, the first thing that I would say is that when you are in your first 30 days at work, don't be in a terrible hurry to make, some big changes. Just hang on, bide your time. And the first thing that I would recommend in any new job is to get to know people. That's the first thing. And it's actually something that, sounds like very obvious, but, people are shy sometimes. They might have come from another city or another town or another country indeed. and that they find it, maybe difficult to make friends. But it is really important that, you take baby steps and that you do make the effort to get to know the people in your direct circle. And then as time moves on, now we have over 700 people, and we would have like a number of different canteens. We have 6 different buildings. So it's not easy to get to know everybody. But get to know your own circle first. And it could be, you really stepping outside of your comfort zone and waiting, rather than waiting for somebody to ask you to go for lunch, maybe just ask somebody like, what time are you going for break? And people in general, most people are really, really nice in the world. And so I would say that, just make that effort to, even if you are shy, to step out of your comfort zone and try and build that connection. So the next piece after building the relationships in the first 30 days is to really start to look at what it is that you really need to learn. So in the first 30 days, you'll be getting an idea of what your job role actually is. Because very often, you get a job description and you look at it and you might think, yeah, that is what I thought the job was. But then you'll start finding that there's other bits, that you didn't really consider. And that there are some new learnings that you need to actually pick up on. And again, that's what we do with Chanelle. If there are any learning pieces that you feel that you could do with some support with, we're there all the way with you. We also are at the early stage of introducing a buddy system, which is a really great thing to have, because it means that, again, if you're a little bit shy or nervous about asking somebody maybe the same question 10 times, I know myself that when I was in my early career, if there was something I didn't understand, if I had asked somebody something maybe twice or 3 times, if on the 4th time I really still didn't know it, I'd actually find, well, I better go to somebody else instead, or they'll really think I'm stupid. And so what I would do is, what I would recommend is that when you go to a new role, if there isn't a buddy system, find somebody that you can trust, build a relationship with them, and just have that go-to person that you're going to be able to ask the questions of. So the relationship piece is very important first. I can't stress it enough how important the relationships are. And then the second piece is, as I said, figure out what it is that you need to learn in your new job. And when you have figured it out, then really learn how to polish it, how to polish that new learning, and to become really adept at particularly the pieces that you're most interested in. But in saying that, there may be pieces that you're not crazy about, but you still have to do them for your job. So what I would say about that is that's where you have to stretch yourself. So normally when we go into anything in life, very often we'll be in what's called our comfort zone. So when you're in your comfort zone, you feel everything is easy and you feel, I'm really comfortable at this, and, I'm very happy to stay in this comfortable area. But the thing is that the longer that you stay in that comfort zone, the more you are not going to grow. And so there is a wall between the comfort zone area and the learning area or the growth area. And what that is it's where you have to really just, pinch your nose and dive into the water. It's where you really need to break through that wall of fear. And one way of doing that is to bring yourself back to a time when maybe you had to do something before that you were really scared of, and you ended up being able to do it. What I find is that when I'm a bit scared of doing something, if it's a new task, or I remember when I was learning data analytics in particular, I was afraid of it because I was never crazy about numbers. And so what I did was I remembered back to a time when I actually, got through something that I thought was going to be more difficult than it turned out to be. So the point is that when you're in a situation where you're in your comfort zone, maybe too much, just give yourself a tap on the shoulder and look at, well, what areas do I need to develop in order to develop in my role? And it could even be the piece about the building relationships, that you're going to become better at building relationships and in, being more approachable perhaps. So the relationships and the learning. So when you've moved from that fixed mindset, which is your comfort zone, and then you move through that wall or that barrier of fear and you go into your growth zone, what will happen is that you'll start to become really good at that as well. And you might actually then find that you're back in the area of where you're in your comfort zone again. So what I would advise, and I've had a long career, what I would advise is that every time you find yourself maybe getting a little bit stale, to look around you and to look at what skills is it that I would really benefit from if I learned to do these. Whether it is a soft skill, which is all about like listening skills, communication skills, relationship building skills, approachability, your ability to collaborate, your resilience skills, or the hard skills, which is the actual practical skills for your job. Be thinking about it all the time. So when you have your first 30, 60 days done, the next piece then, you're in your third month, and by then you should have a pretty good handle on what the job is about. And you've gotten to know, you've started to build some friends or good work relationships at work. And what I would advise then is that by the time you get into that 90-day period, you're probably ready to start really showing what you're good at because you've figured it out yourself. And now it's time to start looking at your own performance. And don't be waiting for other people to give you feedback. Ask for it. Because if you don't know how you're doing, it'll be sort of hard to know the areas that you should be concentrating on and what areas you should be doing a good effort on. So go to people, go to your line manager, your supervisor, your manager. Some companies do one-to-ones. I know that we're very big on one-to-ones and giving people the opportunity to, sit down with their supervisor or manager and to discuss how they're doing. But if it doesn't happen in your company, ask for the feedback. That's really important. But feedback isn't just about being told how brilliant you are. And so sometimes people are really fearful of the feedback because they think, oh God, they're going to tell me something that I don't like. But feedback is actually a gift because the feedback is really giving you a map around where you could perhaps focus more on. And I think that positive feedback is absolutely critical to people's self-esteem. But it's important to know how to take the feedback. And so if somebody says, oh, you're doing great, what I would always ask is, well, thanks, for letting me know I'm doing great, but what am I actually doing great at? Because you want to know, what is it? Why was it great? So that you can do more of it. And if they, say to you that there's a learning or a development opportunity in a particular area that you're maybe not so hot at, then ask for help in, well, how can I do that? How can I get better at this particular area? And then, I have had experiences in the past, where I have heard managers say, but that's your job, you should know how to do it. And that's not really very helpful. So if you find that, you're not getting that helpful feedback and helping you to get to where you need to be, look for it, in kind of a safer space, or maybe just be really honest and say to your line manager, I would really like to be better at this, but I actually need some support or guidance on how to get there. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, so this last piece I absolutely love, and I basically live my life based around this model. So there's a very interesting author called Brené Brown, and she's a professor in Texas University. And this slide here is actually based on the work that she does. So this area here is very much related to engagement at work and engagement with people and relationships in life in general. So it's all about the topic of trust. And trust is a huge piece in employee engagement. So what is trust? I think, a lot of the time people might have a very naive understanding of what trust actually is. And sometimes they will tell you that they didn't realize what trust was until trust was broken. And trust takes quite a long time to build, but it literally can take just seconds to break, whether it is, in a work life or in a personal life. And what this picture shows here is a jam jar. And so in the jar, you'll see lots of coloured marbles. And so I want you to think about this, that when you're at work, that every time that you do something that you said that you would do, or every time that you show your credibility, or that you're a credible person, and not incredible, but credible, that a marble goes into the jar. Okay? So if you think about first time that you meet somebody and you're kind of checking them out and they're checking you out, and every time you see something that you like about that person or that feels good about that person, you put a marble into the jar. Okay? And so the more marbles that go into the jar, the more trust that you are building. And also, from a work perspective, when you are looking at your employer, you will also be looking for some marbles to put into their jar. You'll be looking, you'll be checking them out, seeing how you feel about them. Did they do what they said that they would do? Did they do what they said they would do? And every time they do, it's like a little hint of, I can start building trust here. So when you go to put these marbles in the jar, well, we've just given some examples here where, where you show genuine interest in somebody. That's what's called a deposit. Where you said that you would do something and you kept your promise. That's a deposit. Where you include people and you show them that they matter, as in we spoke earlier about the mattering matters, that's another deposit. Show appreciation to your colleagues or to your friends outside of work, that's a deposit. Give people your time, so somebody at work wants to know how to do something, and even though you're really busy, you know that they're struggling, and both of you are new perhaps, or maybe you've got lots more experience than they have. Bring them aside and say, look, I noticed that you might need a bit of help there. Don't be afraid to ask. Okay? And so that's another lovely deposit. Also, have people's back. I think that's very important, and to help people to know that you have their back, particularly if you're working in a team together and you're working on a project. It's important to know that, somebody has my back rather than somebody's competing with me. Be vulnerable. What I mean by that is don't be afraid to show people that you actually may not know everything. Okay? And humans interact with humans. And there is nothing worse than feeling absolutely dreadful about something at work and, not being able to tell somebody. And so, but very often when we show our vulnerability and we show that, well, this is the real part of me, it actually is often the opportunity to build good relationships because people see the human side of you. And the last one here then is to be present. So being present is actually being mindful that you're actually there right now in the role, doing the job with the people that you're working with, and that your mind hasn't, gone off for too long thinking about, something else that maybe might impact the work that you're doing. So we have all these deposits in the jar, and now we're going to talk about withdrawals. So the thing is that the more marbles you have in the jar, the more opportunities that you will have to maybe slip up the odd time. Okay? So if you think about where you were building trust with somebody and you had given your supervisor plenty of opportunities to see that you could really do the job, and you really have showed up at work in your first 90 days. But then perhaps you might make a mistake. What happens there is that maybe 1 or 2 marbles will fall out of the jar, but that there's enough in there to be able to cope with the mistake. And so that's why we always need to be thinking about how much trust is there in this relationship, whether it's me and my colleague, me and my team, me and my manager, me and my customers, me and my organisation, me and my friends, me and my other half, me and my kids, all of that. And so if we go through life thinking about, the amount of deposits that we are putting into this jar of trust, so that, in the event, as I said, if there's a small slip up or, something goes wrong, that all is not lost, because there was enough deposits in that jar of trust in order to allow that. So at the end of the day, when people join us at Chanelle Pharma, as I said, we really start with, building that jar of trust from day one. And it's very much a two-way street. It's about us showing that we care and that we have a genuine interest in the people who are currently working with us and in the new joiners. But it's also about us also as new hires coming in and making sure that we're putting those marbles in the jar.